Good evening, everyone. Just want to go ahead and get started here. It is 6 o'clock now. If there is anybody here in the audience that intends to speak but did not sign up to do so and get a number, please head over to the registration table over by Tess, who is waving, and go ahead and get signed up and get a number. We will be going through and having speakers come up in the order that they signed up. Just want to thank you all for coming this evening. This is the first opportunity for you all, members of the public, to provide input to both the City Council as well as the County Board on what you feel are needs in the community for the use of the coronavirus recovery funds that will be coming to our governments. I'm Jay Winzenz. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Eau Claire, and Catherine Schaaf, who's the County Administrator, is here as well. From the City Council, and maybe council members, if you just want to wave when I call your name, we've got Council President Terry Weld here. We've got Council Member Emily Berge, Council Member Jill Christofferson, Council Member David Klinkhammer, Council Member Kate Beaton, and I don't see Andrew. And we do have other council members who are listening via WebEx. We are broadcasting live via WebEx, and there'll also be a recording available. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine now to acknowledge the county board members who are here.
Thank you, and thank you for attending this evening. We have a number of board members with us, and also if you could just raise your hand and acknowledge when I announce you. Joe Knight, Kim Cronk, Connie Russell, Zoe Roberts, Jerry Wilkie, Chair Nick Smyer, Colleen Bates, Dane Zook, Jim Dunning, Heather DeLuca, Connie Russell, Nancy Coffey, Don Mowry. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. And just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about, whoops.
And Missy Christofferson.
So Missy is now turning about 12 shades of red underneath her mask there, if anyone didn't notice. But just wanted to spend a couple of minutes going over the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA as we're affectionately calling it, and what the eligible uses of funds are for those dollars. Again, just to provide some information to everybody on what ARPA, or what the feds through ARPA say we can and can't use the dollars for. So I think, as most of you are aware, the City of Eau Claire is expecting to receive about $13.5 million from the federal government through ARPA. And the County of Eau Claire is expected to receive about $20.3 million. So combined about nearly $34 million. So very significant amounts of money coming into the community. Based upon the guidance that's been provided to us by the Department of Treasury, these funds can be used for a variety of purposes, including to support public health expenditures by funding COVID mitigation efforts, medical expenses, behavioral health care, and certain public health and safety staff, to address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency, including economic harms to workers, households, small businesses, impacted industries, and the public sector, replace lost public sector revenue, including using this funding to provide governmental services to the extent the reduction in revenue experienced due to the pandemic, provide premium pay for essential workers, offering additional support to those who have borne and will bear the greatest health risks because of their service in critical infrastructure sectors. And last, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, making necessary investments to improve access to clean drinking water, support vital wastewater and stormwater infrastructure, and to expand access to broadband internet. So those are the items that are specifically identified in the American Rescue Plan Act and the guidance provided by Treasury. Those are somewhat general in nature, and I certainly understand that could be subject to a fair amount of interpretation. But these are the guidelines and the laws that we've received from the federal government for both the city and the county of Eau Claire, and for how these funds are to be used. At this point in the process, this is really the beginning of the process, as I indicated. There'll be multiple steps, both on the city side as well as the county side, for deciding how each entity is going to allocate their dollars. But we want direct input from residents on where you think those funds should go. Ultimately, any funding decisions we make will have to follow those guidelines established by the federal government. That's what we have to do, or very frankly, we'll have to pay any money back that gets used for purposes that the feds say were not appropriate. We have 2 years to commit these funds, and then we have an additional time frame beyond that to actually spend the dollars. It's very important that we be very intentional and strategic in how we use these funds to benefit our communities. This is really a once in a lifetime, once in a generation opportunity. It's not going to, unlikely at least, to come along again. I can't say it's not, but it's very unlikely. We haven't seen these types of dollars before. We didn't see these types of dollars in prior years when we had economic hardships, and I don't expect we'll see them again. So one of those opportunities that we have here is this evening, is this listening session. Another opportunity for City of Eau Claire residents, as well as owners of businesses within Eau Claire, will kick off tomorrow with what we're calling an ARPA budget exercise. So participants, anybody can participate in the budget exercise. It will be online on the city's website. The URL for that will be eauclaire.gov/ARPA. So that opportunity will be available. You can go through and decide how you would allocate $100 between, I believe there are 21 different funding buckets or eligible activities that could be funded using these dollars. So if you want to put it all in one bucket, you can. If you want to divide it amongst multiple buckets, you can do it that way. And this information will all be provided to the city council and help them go through and make establish their priorities for how these funds should ultimately be allocated. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine and let her talk a little bit about the county's process.
The county has begun their process through the work of the County Board of Supervisors, actually creating committees that are going to have open public discussions about how they want to spend the money. All of our information about the meetings, as well as our survey and other materials, will be located on our website. We actually have a special icon devoted to the ARPA funding so that it's easy to find. And you can not only find information there, but we will have it be an interactive resource for you so that you can share information with us. We appreciate your coming out this evening and look forward to continuing a very inclusive and open process. I think that one of the things that we know from a county perspective is that the amount of money and the amount of work that it will take to spend it well is going to take an all hands on deck approach. And we look forward to partnering with our community, business partners, not-for-profits, and others to make lasting and enduring community investments.
Thanks, Catherine. I just want to acknowledge that City Council Member Andrew Worthman did walk in as we were speaking, as well as County Board Member Kathy Schneider. So just wanted to acknowledge both of them. And Judy Gatlin. And I believe Councilmember Emmanuel walked up too. She's in the back row there, waving at everybody. Pageant wave, Catherine. So just want to go over about, again, just a little bit about the format for this evening's listening session. We are here to listen to your thoughts on how the ARPA funds can be used to help our community recover from COVID-19. We will not be answering questions nor engaging in any sort of a back and forth discussion. We are here to listen. Even though we are outside and it's beautiful out here, please do try to respect each other's personal space and keep 6 feet or so between each other. It looks like everyone's pretty well spread out. That's great. Speakers will be called up by number. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. Please start out with your name and address so we can get that for the record. And when, say, number 1 is up speaking and number 2 is on deck, if number 2 would go over by Kathy Marole and just queue up over there so that when the first speaker is done, then you can come over, and then number 3 can go stand over towards Kathy. We've got a number of people who want to speak, so we want to make sure we keep everybody moving through. As I said it right at the beginning, if you wish to speak and did not register and need a number, please, again, go over and see Tess at the registration table. When your number is called, please approach the microphone, name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. When you have 1 minute left, Jason here will hold up a little sign that says 1 minute. When you have 30 seconds left, it'll be 30 seconds, and then we would ask that you wrap up your comments. So other than that, let's go ahead and get started. So speaker number 1.
I look taller on TV. Hi. For those who don't know me, my name is Julie Pangallo. I represent the Sculpture Tour program in Eau Claire. My address is 6711 US Highway 12, Eau Claire. But I don't want to talk specifically about Sculpture Tour tonight. I want to talk about free public art in general. And I don't want to talk about how beat up we got during COVID. I want to talk about what art does for the community. When you talk about recovery, obviously, I think we all know that we're not going to recover without outside money. And I'm not referring to the grant. I'm talking about tourism dollars coming over from Minnesota. Specifically, we want Minnesota, but wherever tourism dollars come from. Public art has proven to be one of the things that Visit Eau Claire gets the most requests about. Public art, followed by Parks and Recreation, is what they get information requested about. And I think promoting the arts and building our arts community is the best way to access other people's money. Economic development, obviously, bringing people into town where they can spend their money. Education is another important facet of free public art. I don't know if you're aware, but there was an education survey a few years ago in Eau Claire that showed 90% of the students in Eau Claire would never visit a museum or gallery with their parents. 90% in this community, which is, to me, that's staggering. And if we want those kids to grow into citizens that contribute to their community, we have to reach them now, and we have to put art and music in front of them. Active lifestyles, obviously. 1 minute already? Okay, I'm going to have to really jump along here. I think social inclusion is a really important facet of public art. Obviously, not everyone in this community is going to recover at the same rate from the pandemic. Creative economy, downtown revitalization, community pride, free family fun, all of that. But I think we're talking about economic recovery, but spiritual and physical recovery is just as important. We've all been traumatized. A lot of us have lost people during this. And I think the healing power of music, of dance, performing arts, visual arts is something we need to consider. And I hope that you will fund the arts with the idea that the heart and vitality of our community depends on it. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the County Board and the City Council. Carrie Kincaid, 4441 Lowe's Creek Road, Eau Claire. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about some of the ideas that the arts community has for dispersing local ARPA funds in ways that will help us recover. First, we are grateful to the national response for the national response to the pandemic that extends recovery help to local communities. We are also respectful of the decision you have in the coming months as you figure out how to disperse these federal ARPA funds. I speak tonight on behalf of the whole local arts community. Some arts groups will also speak, like you just heard, Julie. Some are just represented tonight, and some were contacted. But I wish to read this list of the arts groups in our community, and maybe they'll stand up as I speak their name. The Chippewa Valley Museum, the Chippewa Valley Symphony Orchestra, the Eau Claire Chamber Orchestra, Chippewa Valley Writers Guild, Artisan Forge Studios, the Pablo Center at the Confluence, Master Singers, Eau Claire Children's Museum, Chippewa Valley Theater Guild, Chippewa Valley Jazz Orchestra, Eau Claire Jazz Festival, the Eau Claire Children's Theater, Valley Art Association, Sculpture Tour, and I contacted the Among Artists group and El Centro. As you can see, we have a large and diverse group of artists. We are the arts. We are 40,000 years old. We are older than written language by 20,000 years. Our job is to reflect and critique the human condition in words, music, dance, theater, and the work of our hands. We are 40,000 years old, and we will not be put down by a pandemic. Over the last 18 months, the arts organizations you see before you have stayed alive by sheer grit. We recorded free music. We opened Pablo's doors to school-aged children. We sent free music out into the world from the Jam Theater. Sometimes we performed a little live performance. We read poetry from our kitchen tables. We hosted a Jurassic Park-like collection of metal dinosaurs, and we spread a tour of outdoor sculptures around our city. We stayed alive by sheer grit, but we are not thriving, and we could use your help. Our simple ask tonight is that you consider including arts organizations in some of the application process that you will be putting together over the next few months. Thank you again for convening this listening session. We do respect that you have difficult decisions ahead of you. We are the arts. We are 40,000 years old, and we will not be put down by a pandemic. Thank you.
My name is Sam Murdy. I reside at 5551 East Hamilton Avenue. I am here today representing the Confluence Council as incoming president, but more importantly, I'm a newly married man and a father of 3, all of whom love this community and the Pablo Center. I'd be remiss if I first didn't thank the city and the county for its incredible and vital role in making the Pablo Center a reality. When the Confluence Project launched in 2012, we spoke of a place in which and through which the community would grow and learn, laugh and cry together, right? Not so much a place, but an ideal, right? A place without walls, without borders, we could grow. This ideal was partially realized through numerous partnerships and hundreds of programs that brought in thousands of people. That is until the pandemic struck. And it couldn't come at a worse time for a fledgling organization like ours. The pandemic eradicated $4 million worth of revenue for us. It threatened the livelihoods of hundreds of employees, some of whom are here today, and threatened the very existence of many of those arts organizations that stood up. Given that every dollar spent at the Pablo Center is multiplied 7-fold in this community, the impact on the county and the city was even more profound. Amid the pandemic, as Carrie mentioned, the center found new and creative ways to engage, entertain, and educate. The PODS program brought much needed child support to LMI households. We expanded our STEAM programming, including robotics and Girls Who Code, turned ArtMobile virtual, and spearheaded the Together Chippewa Valley and National Independent Venue Association initiatives, bringing much needed dollars to these arts organizations. We also formed the Inclusive and Just Engagement and Practices Committee to address, to ensure that the center was welcoming to everyone. This early work is already reflected in the important season 4 programming that we're doing. Reopening the center and regaining lost momentum will not be easy. Coping with the implications of COVID-19 requires investments in staff and infrastructure. We'll need to replace lost revenue and instill patron confidence. Support from the city and county through the American Rescue Plan Act, which identifies speeding the recovery of tourism, travel, and hospitality sectors as key use of funds, would provide a much needed boost to these efforts and provide reverberating effects throughout the region. In full recognition of our long-standing partnership at both the city and county and our acute need, we would therefore welcome any support that you could provide. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Salton. I reside at 1451 Blackberry Road in Eau Claire. Thank you very much, County Board members, City Council, for the honor. This evening, as a local author, I represent the Chippewa Valley Writers Guild and the Chippewa Valley Book Festival. The Guild, under the auspices of B.J. Hollers, who can't be here tonight because he's reading at the volume 1 with he and his son. They have 2 major programs, the Priory Writers Group and the Academy, Art Academy, which he launched this year. Both of those combined efforts provide for the community approximately $60,000. Those funds could be probably produced by 2 were there more adequate funds. It's obvious that the pandemic has clipped their wings in that a lot of the events had to be done virtually, which precluded bringing any of the young writers, young and old, I should say, to Eau Claire to participate in the community and spend money in the community. So in the Chippewa Valley Book Festival, it's in its 22nd year. And in those 22 years, we have brought 450 authors to the community. And we have, with our authors in the schools program, 40,000 of our youngsters in Eau Claire, and every single school in the community has seen an author. That's 40,000 children who have been directly affected by an author in their classroom. We had to, this past year, do a virtual event in February and March, and we've also doing our event at the end of October, both virtual and in person here at the Pablo. But we could be doing much more, both the Guild and the Book Festival, representing the literary arts in this community, if we had some extra funding to provide more authors coming into the community, perhaps even better author known. But both the Guild and the Chippewa Valley Book Festival are here to ask for more funding. Thank you very much.
My name is Kathy Stotts, and as president of the Master Singers of Eau Claire at P.O. Box 3194, thank you for this opportunity to reflect on the role and importance of the arts in our community. A 2019 survey and report supported by the National Endowment for the Arts noted that some 54 million Americans participate in organized group singing. and noted that the number of Americans singing actually has increased over the past decade. Nearly 3/4 of those polled felt less lonely, and 80% said organized singing made them more optimistic, mindful, and resilient. Interestingly, the study also revealed that chorus members are more likely to support organizations, both financially and as volunteers. They also vote. In fact, 90% report that they vote regularly in national and local elections, and they run for public office more often. Choristers have said the experience has made them more open-minded. Older singers report sharper minds, better health, and less isolation. And we know from our own surveys of the Master Singers concertgoers that our music sustains them, providing peace and solace and bringing joy. Singing has long been woven into the fabric of our lives. We sing at birthdays, weddings, and funerals, to salute our flag, to soothe a child to sleep, and to rally the fans at a sporting event. We sing because, as you've heard, it is our oldest instrument, a natural extension of a baby's first cry, the exultation of the hunt, or the keening wail of grief at death. We stayed our voices and our gatherings as the pandemic has raged on until vaccines, research, and best practices cautiously cracked open the doors to our rehearsal rooms. But through that time, we stayed present. Despite canceled performances and lost income, we moved our mission online, crafting social media offerings of our finest performance recordings. When all else breaks down, music and the other arts are often still speaking, but their cultivation and appreciation and their comeback from the pandemic require intention and support. We will need all the tools we can amass, financial, cultural, artistic, to rebuild a future that fosters and celebrates that which brings us together to serve the common good. As the Master Singers rehearse, vaccinated, masked, and distanced, just steps away from this meeting tonight, I am reminded of a line from our fall program. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? Please help make it possible for the arts to play a role in the recovery and revitalization of our economy, our communities, and our quality of life here in the Chippewa Valley. Thank you.
Hard act to follow. Good evening, City Council and County Board members. I've asked for your forgiveness in talking fast this evening. My name is Susan Wolfgram. I live at 550 Graham Avenue, and I'm the co-chair of the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force. ARPA funding guidance for affordable housing was released by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and includes addressing the housing and health needs of people experiencing homelessness and building affordable housing in impacted communities. Our Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force is advocating for two priorities that meet these criteria. Number one, a day resource center for our unhoused community. Services for the unhoused are on a continuum of care from emergency shelter to permanent housing. Currently, we have no day sheltering services for our unhoused neighbors from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. once they leave the Sojourner House overnight shelter. This is a life-threatening situation and has already cost lives in our community. We advocate for our community, including impacted people, to design this low-barrier multi-service day resource center, another piece on the continuum of care. 24-hour support for unhoused people, including supportive services, is supported by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and many others. We have a number of successful models to visit and learn from, including the Beacon Homeless Day Resource Center in Madison, which is run by Catholic Charities. Our request is that the City and County of Eau Claire disperse at minimum $1 million to fund a developer agreement with a local developer who will build this space and provide 3 years of support without charging rent to any nonprofit agency during the transition to providing services. The second priority we are advocating for is second chance housing. In 2018, 37.7% of Eau Claire's workforce was employed in the 25 lowest wage jobs and making at or less than $30,000 a year. In the 2020 United Way Alice report, 35%, more than 1/3 of our neighbors, are struggling with making basic ends meet. And as Matthew Desmond writes in Evicted, the rent eats first. In addition, many of our neighbors with high rental barriers struggle to find housing, forcing many to live in substandard, unsafe, and financially exorbitant hotel environments. Landlords in Eau Claire are not incentivized to provide housing to folks with high barriers, given that the vacancy rate is very low in our city. We must incentivize and partner to fill this gap. Our request is that the city and county of Eau Claire disperse $3 million of ARPA funds to intentionally develop, with public-private partnerships, affordable housing for those with the highest of rental barriers. We'd be happy to collaborate on both requests, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Good evening. My name's Judy Mosley, and I reside at 2230 Trimble Street here in Eau Claire. I'm an area realtor. I co-chair the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force with Susan, and I also sit on the city's Housing Opportunities Commission. You would easily be able to guess that I'm here to advocate for money for housing. In the last few years, we've seen the effects of a nationwide housing shortage right here in our valley. Stagnant wages and the lingering effects of the housing crash has meant that many people in our community cannot afford a safe place to live. We've seen a large increase in the last decade of individuals who are homeless, staying with family or friends, or living in their cars. COVID is only making it much, much worse. The good news is, as Susan pointed out, there are solutions, but it takes a lot of community investment to make those solutions work. I make these two suggestions: to create and fund a day resource center using a private-public partnership, $1 million to fund a development agreement, and that will provide daytime services to individuals who are unhoused. It would include bathrooms, showers, laundry facilities, meals, beverages. Space would be included for nonprofit agencies to provide staff with quiet areas that they can meet with clients. And larger areas could host an exercise program or a financial literacy class. There also should be areas where an individual working evening or overnight shifts could sleep during their non-working daytime hours. The second is to provide a subsidy to developers for building second chance housing. $3 million to go to the city's affordable housing fund that would be earmarked specifically for housing for people who have very high rental barriers or who are at risk for eviction. These two priorities could make a real difference in our community. Safe, affordable housing is a human right. Thank you all for being here tonight and for listening to us.
My name is Anna Rebicki, and I live at 1710 Rust Street in Eau Claire. I'm the executive director of the Chippewa Valley Symphony. Our business was completely transformed on March 13th, 2020. That's when we canceled our first performance. It was actually the day before it was supposed to happen. Since that time, our ticket sales, which generally account for about half of our revenue, have been zero. Our mission is to provide excellent symphonic experiences to audiences in the Chippewa Valley. Despite the lack of earned income over the last year and a half, we have worked hard to meet that mission and serve our neighbors. During the summer of 2020, we produced a 6-part video series called Local Color, a celebration of local art and music, which featured solo musicians in front of Eau Claire murals, playing music and talking about music making during the pandemic. In winter and spring of 2020 and 2021, we produced 3 virtual concerts of distanced and masked string musicians in locations such as the new River Prairie Center in Altoona and the historic Great Hall of Christ Church Cathedral. We took on the costs of a multi-person camera crew and professional audio and editing. And of course, we paid our conductor and our musicians. And then we made all of those concerts available freely online for our community to enjoy. We usually employ musicians to visit elementary schools. And so last year instead, we created instrument demonstration videos and made those available to teachers and students. And we made our last 2 young artist competitions completely virtual, judging and awarding winners remotely. We made it this far due to the generosity of our donors and government relief programs. But now we're entering a time of uncertainty. We're planning a full concert season here at the Pablo Center. Our expenses, like renting the hall and printing program booklets and paying our conductor and paying our musicians, are all going to go back up to those pre-pandemic levels, at least. But we anticipate that our ticket sales will continue to be affected by the ongoing pandemic. While some of our patrons are enthusiastically returning to come hear us play, others aren't ready yet, and we don't know when they will be. We are just one of many arts organizations that are part of the fabric of this community, knitting together to make it a vibrant and desirable place to live. We realize that there are many critical needs across the various sectors of our community, but would ask that when you allocate funds, you include arts organizations like the Chippewa Valley Symphony. It would be a much needed lifeline to keep the arts vital in Eau Claire. Thank you.
My name is Brianna Trout. I live at 2414 Skeels Ave in Eau Claire. I am a senior consultant at an organization called We Adapt. We Adapt is a peer support mentorship program supporting youth as well as adults. I believe the community would benefit from having a portion of these funds go towards peer support. An example of what I do is meeting with individuals who are in recovery or working towards sobriety. I meet people where they are at in life, help them get connected to resources. I am in constant communication with the people I support, taking them to appointments, court dates, exploring personal interests or hobbies, working towards goals such as obtaining housing, employment. I am able to connect and be effective at what I do because of my own lived experience. I have been in recovery for 3 years, so with the individuals I support, there is no power dynamic. So I am asking that a portion of these funds go towards peer support because of its proven effectiveness. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Brown. My address is 428 Olive Street in Chippewa Falls. I am an associate consultant at We Adapt, one of the fastest growing peer support and mentorship organizations in the area, currently serving 13 counties. In my lifetime, I've experienced trauma in many forms. I've struggled with mental health and addiction for most of my life. I've been to treatment and jail more times than I can remember. For the past 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working as a volunteer and advocate alongside some great organizations in the area, such as Expo, Jonah, and Roundtable Revival. We focused our efforts on recovery, re-entry to community after periods of incarceration, housing, and trauma care, which are just some of the bigger challenges our community faces. Throughout my participation, one thing that stood out to me was the area of peer support and mentorship and its effectiveness. Focusing on participant-centered recovery models rather than criminal justice models. Today, I'm asking that a portion of funds from the American Rescue Plan be used in the area of peer support and mentorship and to supplement programming such as Comprehensive Community Services, or CCS, that currently exist in the Department of Human Services. Thank you.
Good evening. Roxy Schmidt. I reside at 1604 Lynn Ave, and tonight I'm representing the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on how ARPA funds can be used to respond to the negative impacts of the pandemic. Boys and Girls Clubs, along with our partners, including the Eau Claire School District, Power of Perception, the City Council, City County Health Department, play a vital role in supporting kids and families. Because clubs are available to anyone at low or no cost, we have been serving those hardest hit by the pandemic. We've also been open when others weren't able to be. Academic learning has always been a part of our programs, and that focus has increased tremendously during the pandemic. Partnerships with schools, including principals, guidance counselors, and teachers, were solidified during the pandemic. We have also trained our staff and adapted our focus to address social emotional development and mental health, building coping skills, and providing a trauma-informed care approach. Another focus moving forward is on middle and high school students. During the first several months of the pandemic, we limited our program to club kids in 2nd through 5th grade due to limited capacity because of health and safety protocols. Bringing those kids back into the club and engaging them in high-quality programs, experiences, and opportunities has a renewed focus with several innovative approaches. We realize that providing funding for ongoing expenses may not be within the scope of these funds. Instead, we would like to request support for facility infrastructure improvements that will improve the accessibility, safety, and capacity of our facility to serve club kids over the next 10 to 15 years. An elevator needs to be installed to make the teen center accessible. This is the only area in our building currently not accessible for club kids and volunteers. A renovation of the teen center to make it not only more attractive to middle and high schoolers so that they want to return to the club, but needed changes to bathrooms and removal of walls are needed for safety and security reasons. Safety improvements are needed for our main entrance to increase line of sight as well as visibility of the club. Additional security cameras and other safety features are needed in other areas of the club. And there are several areas where remaining asbestos flooring needs to be removed, as we anticipate it will become compromised within the next 5 years. As you consider funding for priorities for ARPA funds, we hope you will consider the infrastructure and capacity building investments that will help us better serve kids and their families, underserved and marginalized populations, all of who have been most impacted by the pandemic. Thank you for your consideration.
Nyangzhong, hello. My name is Tru Vu. I am the Executive Director over the Eau Claire Hmong Mutual Assistance Association. I reside at 1614 Chumas Drive, and I am just so happy this is history working when we have the Eau Claire County and the city together to hear about what we have to say as a community. And I am so happy to see all of our friends and family behind me too, to talk and discuss about what we should do with this money, because we know in the past things have been kind of closed door. So I really appreciate this moment and this time. In my line of work and most of the things that I've done in my career, I have helped and assisted the Hmong community. And I can tell you that there are so many needs that needs to be met. And taking my position as the executive director, I see how large of an impact it is of what COVID has done for them. We have youth who has expressed their desire to meet with their friends. And for the year and a half, they have not been able to, and some of them have had suicidal thoughts. With my past experience working with the Eau Claire Area School District, I know how learning is with the students because I work with them in the classroom. And I have siblings who are in the school district. and they teach and they are a principal. And so I hear about what's going on in the classrooms. And so with that, I am hoping that we have kind of started working with the Eau Claire Area School District to make sure that we have culturally specific language and assistant help after school, so that parents who have to go and work for third shifts, we can help assist them and make sure that they get their grades up. Because we know, looking at data, our Hmong students are very behind and very low. I also work with the elders, and the elders is actually one of our biggest groups at the Hmong Association. And it's quite sad because culturally specifically, their needs are not being met. Food-wise, they come to our food pantry, but we don't have food that fits their needs. I'm sorry, they don't eat beans from a can. They don't eat beets. What they eat are bamboos, sour bamboos, bitter melons. These things we don't have at the grocery stores. These things we have to drive up to the cities, or we have to grow our own. And if you are an elder who can't bend over to garden, you won't have that. So I hope that the funds that we get at the Hmong Association would help the whole community, not just from someone who is very young at an elementary age, but all the way up to when they're old. So I just wanted to end with this quote, and this is something that I live by. Sorry, give me 1 second. I had it. Oh yes, here it is. Work for a cause, not for applause. Live life to express, not to impress. And that's all I just want to share with you, and I hope that you can carry on that with me as well. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pa Tao, and I live at S8651 Apple Road. Thank you for hosting this public hearing on how the American Rescue Plan funding can be allocated and spent. Tonight, I am speaking on behalf of the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition, myself as a resident of the County of Eau Claire, and as a small business owner. Institutions, intentionally or not, continue to uphold standards that promote social racism. This system of social opportunities to unfairly disadvantage Black, Indigenous, and other people of color create stark differences in health outcomes. The disproportionate rate of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color affected by COVID-19 is a direct result of hundreds of years of social racism that has shown up from police violence to hate crimes against Asian Americans. So tonight, I urge the city and the County of Eau Claire to prioritize and center Black, Indigenous, and other people of color by creating opportunities with the ARPA funds that can be accessible and equitable. We need you to make real investment to support vulnerable population and underserved community members. Our youth need investment to bounce back from falling behind during the pandemic so that they can succeed and become contributing members of our community. BIPAC organizations that have continued to work throughout the pandemic, providing mutual aid, need the additional resources to amp up their services and fill in gaps where donations once used to support. As we all know, that donations to nonprofits have drastically decreased because of the pandemic. BIPAC small businesses, including artists, were hit the hardest by the pandemic. Some of my favorite restaurants, such as Monja Catering and Asian Palace, went out of business because of the pandemic. Local Hmong farmers struggling to sell their flowers and produce, many of whom are not eligible for government-supported loan programs during the pandemic and were left on their own to no recourse. As a community that value local food, we need to also value and invest in the people that are bringing local foods to our community, the majority of who are Hmong farmers. The mental health of our community and the folks in our community required culturally specific peer counseling, which ARPA funds can be used towards, and increasing the capacity of local BIPAC organizations to respond to other health issues such as domestic violence and sexual assault, crimes which went underreported and unreported during COVID-19. Lastly, I encourage the city and the county of Eau Claire to continue to have public conversations and input for impacted communities beyond today of how ARPA funds can be spent. We know that there are folks who want to be here that could not be here. And we know there are folks in our community who has ideas to share that do not feel comfortable being here. The city and the county need to go where the community is, including the many neighborhood associations, and among churches and the other nonprofit organizations and other places where people trust and go to. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to more conversations.
Good evening. My name is Pakutel, and my address is 2582 70th Street, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I am the lead organizer for Power Up Eau Claire of the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition. COVID-19 has heavily impacted the BIPAC community. I know this personally because I am part of that community. I have friends, family members who couldn't afford rent, food, basic needs, lost their businesses, jobs, and I know children who has over 100 plus missing assignments because their parents didn't know how to navigate the online system. They don't speak the English language and they couldn't help with homework. We, along with ALCU of Wisconsin, Chippewa Valley LGBTQ plus Community Center, the Chippewa Valley Equity Initiative, Citizen Action Wisconsin, Eau Claire, Wisconsin District, Hmong PTA, the Hmong American Leadership Economic Development, and 160 residents of city and Eau Claire County have signed on to the following demands, asking the city and county to prioritize the community that has been mostly impacted. These demands are as follow. Number one, establish a clear community-led process before funds are allocated and spent. Number two, create a budget trust of 20% for our community to decide. No additional funds to the police. Fundings for housing assistance, invest in a community-led development housing, and community land trust for small BIPOC farmers. Funds to youth-led organizations centering BIPOC and LGBTQ and youth. Funds to support BIPOC and LGBTQ artists and art group. Funds to support BIPOC and LGBTQ organization and mutual aid. Funds supporting preventative care, health, and well-being, creating access to medical, mental health, and culturally specific domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy. Lastly, funds to support BIPOC businesses. So I urge you, the county board and city council member, to focus on BIPOC communities who are mostly impacted when you are making decision. We respect your decision, but only when your action reflects what our community needs is when our community will believe that you are listening. Thank you so much.
The sun is going down. We've got to get in there. My name is Brooke Gia Newmaster. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And my Jangmi Korean Dance and Drum Studio is at 515 Wisconsin Street. It used to be a Harley Davidson fixer-upper shop, so I know there's some Harley Davidson riders here. I know it. Yeah, I knew it. I'm here as a proud board member of the Pablo Center, and I say that proud. I am very humbled that I could even be a part of this organization as a board member and have a voice in this arts community. I visited here during the 100-year anniversary of the university in 2016 in the fall. And I was struck at the amazing confluence and coming together of these different agencies to create this arts community that already existed, but you are doing something to embody the love of the arts that existed here already. So that is the reason I moved to Eau Claire, was not this building, but the growing enthusiasm and camaraderie and coming together to make arts one of the fundamental things in this town. And I will tell you that I believe that every single person here already supports the arts. That's why we're standing in front of this beautiful center and why we have so many smaller arts organizations that have thrived here and are asking you to continue to thrive. So believe it or not, I'm not here to ask you for support for more Korean dancing and drumming. There's not a large Korean community. But I am asking you to, could you help me out? Say dong, dong, kung ta kung. Kung ta kung ta kung ta kung. So I knew it, that coming to Eau Claire, that I am not the majority culturally, but that I'm going to find some people who are going to be willing to come along with and to listen to my cultural expertise and learn and then come together to create something beautiful. That was pretty good. That was our first time. So it's going to take many, many times of getting together to do that. And so what I'm asking this group of people and everyone out here is that I'm asking for, when you have people of color in leadership and people of color in your community, we keep asking for the things that will help our communities. And we keep asking for things that will help the other community. I'm not just focused clearly on Korean community. I'm very interested in making sure Hmong community has what Hmong community needs. And Hmong community experts know what their community needs, and they absolutely need your help. If they do not have your help, as the majority, there is majority white leadership, we need you to believe in the leadership of the cultural experts of a racially diverse and culturally diverse community. And you need to step over into buying in, or the power will never shift in order for us to not only survive, but we want to thrive and flourish. And we can do that in Eau Claire. And you might get some other nutty people moving here from other communities that wants to be a part of this community. I want to be a part of this community, but we are fragmented racially, culturally, and this is our chance to be part of the healing time in this relief to come together. And we absolutely need all of your help and buy-in in the future. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Ives. I live at E20250 Greens Landing Road, which is in the township of Bridge Creek, outside the city of Augusta. First, thank you all for your time and attention tonight. And I got to say, after the first 17 speakers, this one's going to be a little bit different, but all of those are very important as well. And I would ask you to seriously consider them in their requests. Tonight, I'm here to ask for your help and consideration for a critical county infrastructure project. If you've had the opportunity to visit Lake Eau Claire, specifically the East End, there's an area known as Skid Row. Skid Row, at one point, the county decided it was important enough to put a boat landing there. But if you've been out there lately, you've realized that that boat landing is virtually useless. That's because the sedimentation that has moved down from the river has made the water levels at Skid Row sometimes ankle deep, maybe a foot deep at most, which has a very negative impact on us being able to navigate boat traffic down to the east end of the lake. And it also has a negative impact on all those property owners who are residents of Skid Row. Ultimately, it will have a negative impact on their property values if we don't do something about it. So what we're asking you for are funds to really help us accelerate a project that we've had in the works for a while. And this is to dredge the Skid Row area. And if you think about it's worth noting that the projects on Lake Eau Claire, we don't just ask for county money, but we apply for grants. we have a nonprofit organization that also helps, which I happen to be the vice president of. And we also get personal donations for these projects. So I think it was in the county framework where they talked about working with organizations that will contribute money, that will work with the county, not only just to take the grant, accept the grants, but put their money where their mouth is as well. And we're an organization and a group that's willing to do that. Making Skid Row not only is important for the residents, but it's also important for tourism. Eau Claire County is a great place. The Eau Claire River, Eau Claire Lake is a great place for people to come visit. Somebody said it earlier, we love when the Minnesotans come and spend money in our county, and we would like to see more of that. So the more that we can drive tourism in Lake Eau Claire, the more it's going to help the small businesses, the more it's going to generate tax revenue, and the more it's going to make Lake Eau Claire and Eau Claire County a place for people to come, make a living, and make their family. And the last plea I would ask for is increase funding for rural broadband. If the pandemic showed us one thing, it's that those of us that live in the rural communities were really handcuffed when things had to go virtual. So please consider funding for Lake Eau Claire, and please consider funding for broadband. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ronander, 1021 East Grand Avenue. I'm also the Executive Director of the Chippewa Valley Museum. I want to thank you all for taking the time to really sit and listen and hear the voices that are here tonight and other voices that will be coming to you over the next few weeks, months, and time as we go through this whole process. It really is appreciated. My remarks tonight are about the importance of investing in arts and culture and local history organizations, and the Chippewa Valley Museum happens to be all three, so that's great. The work that is done by the Chippewa Valley Museum and other history organizations really help residents and visitors better understand this community and this region. This is Eau Claire and our issues and our past, and what we are today is our thing. And understanding that is just so important. The better we understand the past, the better we understand today. And I know that sounds so trite. I know you've heard this, but it is so true. I mean, good citizenry depends on knowing the past. And what's more, if you don't take the time to preserve the past, to save the history, you lose it. You will never get an Omaha Depot here again. You will never be able to build the 1950s downtown. We will never be able to ask Henry Bradford why he came to Eau Claire in the 1860s. Henry Bradford was the first Black businessman in Eau Claire. There's nothing that he left behind, but we discovered him going through newspapers and things. And those materials are what's saved at the Chippewa Valley Museum and at other places in the community. So it's really important to save this history, because if you don't, you lose it and you forget it. And that's a loss for all of us. So you can find those things at the museum. And if you don't, save those voices, you only hear about the famous and the wealthy. And there are so many, many others that are just common individuals who have helped shape this community. So I really want to encourage you to think about how to preserve and support the museums, the art galleries, and the performing arts places in Eau Claire, because they are what build our youth. They show the youth what is important about us, about the region. They show the residents, they bring visitors here, and we really want them here, as we've heard. We want their money here, and provide gathering spots and places for sanctuary for people and families around the region. And they are places to celebrate what's good about here and discover what has changed and what has not. So again, I thank you for the time to listen and to think about how to best serve everybody in the community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Lee. I live at E21680 County Road SD in Augusta. I'm the chairman of the Lake Eau Claire District, and you just heard a speaker talk about the projects we're trying to get accomplished to open up our county boat landing on our lake. I'd like to speak on a bigger project we've got in mind. It's a fairly new project we're working on. It's a joint project between Lake Eau Claire, Lake Altoona, and the Eau Claire County Land Conservation Department. Goal of this project is to study the river a little bit more so we can plan ahead for our dredging projects, see how much work we really need to do and where it needs to be done. So we're not wasting our money in the future. We spend a lot of money keeping our lake maintained, and we don't want to waste it. We want to use it the most effective way we can. So what we're looking at is the land conservation in 2013 and again in 2020 did what's called a LiDAR measurement. It's laser measurement from airplanes that do a real detailed measurement of the landscape. They did the entire county. And what we want to use is some of that data to see how the river has changed, where erosion is happening, where the most soil is moving around. And it's expensive, and the land conservation doesn't have the money to do it for our particular project. So we would be interested in applying for state grants, which we do regularly for our projects, and we would do some fundraising, and Lake Altoona would participate too, and we're looking at doing the river from Lake Altoona all the way up to the county line. So we'd be able to see what's changed over the last 7 years. This is critical information for us. We've never been able to measure anything this way before. So looking for some support for that. And we don't have a lot of details yet because this is pretty new, but would be more than happy to speak to you again in the future with some actual numbers, what this might cost. We're in the process of getting some quotes of what this analysis costs, but it's worthwhile to use some of this data that we have. It's not doing any good right now. So I look forward to your cooperation in the future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patricia A. Hawkinson. I'm an illustrator. My business is called Expressive Domain, and I'm located at 1106 Mondovi Road, part of Artisan Forge Studios. I'm really here to represent myself. What I'm trying to point out is that Artisan Forge is an umbrella space that has 50 or so creatives that are within that housing. Many people think that we're like a nonprofit or a fundraising kind of thing, where somehow we have all this money because we're what seems to the public a bigger space. But really, we're just people like me. It's just individual little studios that we rent. So I rent mine. And in that little space, I color. And you may have seen my book, Color Eau Claire. And a lot of people come because they love the spaces of that. They love finding that, oh, I got engaged on that bench down there. You know, I went to that school. I've been to that park. I love those places. And that was important for me when I made the book, Color Eau Claire. I actually talked to 200 different people in our community to help build that book, and maybe some of you were a part of that discussion. And the Pablo Center here too was one of the featured illustrations in that book. But at the time that I made the book, there was no Pablo Center. And I had to work with the architects from Ayers Associates to tell me how the building was going to look. And so we're working with their preliminary sketches. I drew the sketch that ended up being in the Color Eau Claire coloring book. And I said, you guys better build it exactly like I drew it, because now it's out there. But you know what? That's one of the spaces that people come by and they like to see that image. The images of our city are the memories that we have. And I bring those coloring books to places like nursing homes, and the people there who have trouble remembering things. It's like that picture. It's like, oh, I remember that. And then comes the memories. And so all of the places that we have here are so important to us. And I'm also part of a new kind of a growing group called the Urban Sketchers Chippewa Valley. You'll see us around, and we've been here many times sketching. We're out in our community here. We're about 30 people strong, and we're drawing our space. And we love it, and I know the people who enjoy our sketches love it too. But how is that going to help when you guys are talking about funding? I'm talking about Artisan Forge and thinking about the individual people. Many of us in our little spaces didn't have enough money to even qualify for the grants that were offered before. So, you know, bootstraps, keeping ourselves going. But one of the things that we would like to see some funding using is for a classroom space. Artisan Forge has like 50 some creatives there, musicians, tea ceremonies, tattoo artists. I mean, all kinds. You just can't know how great it is till you get there. So please come. And also, we're uptown and we miss a lot of the downtown fundings. So support uptown and think about if we had the potential to rent just one of those spaces as a classroom. Just think of the hundreds and hundreds of people and students and community groups that could come and be a part of that and gain. And you know, arts are healing. Oh my gosh, we need to color and we need to have color in our lives. So thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Michelle Skinner at 7121 South Shore Drive. I'm the chair of the Lake Altoona District Board. You heard from did I say Lake Eau Claire? Oh, you heard from Lake Eau Claire. Now it's Lake Altoona's turn. I don't do chants or cheers, and I do sing, but at church, not in public. But I want to put into perspective for you why it's important to invest in our lakes, because really it's investing in everyone when we do that. One of the areas specifically designated for ARPA funding is water and infrastructure. You combine those two ideas and you have to consider why it's important. Water is quality of life, it is recreation, it's essential to life, and think about it, it's in our name. Eau Claire, French for clear water, thank you. And right here in the middle of Eau Claire, we have Lake Altoona. It's close to everything. It has beaches, volleyball courts, pavilions, boat ramps, public fish docks. And when COVID hit, it was one of the places where people could go, they could be outside, be outdoors, and not be afraid of getting sick. And oddly enough, most of us don't know how sick Lake Altoona really is and how sick some of our other lakes are too. The Eau Claire River that flows into Lake Altoona carries sand. That's what rivers do. And the river deposits 64,000 cubic yards of sand every year into the lake. So what does that mean? Who cares? It's 6,000 dump trucks of sand every year coming into that lake. The scientists predict that if nothing is done, and at the current rate, that lake will die within 30 years by 2050. So sand's a problem, and so is the water. High bacteria levels shut down the beach 28 days last year. 28 days, that's 1 month, that's 1/3 of the summer season, lost to families who couldn't play in the water, who didn't have the outlet to be able to swim because it was shut down. And this year, the problem is algae blooms. 34 days of warnings not to swim in the water because of algae at dangerous levels. So these problems are happening at a time of high need to be outside in the fresh air and a time of high use. Pre-COVID, sales of annual passes to the park were at around 4,000. Last year, it was 4,500, and this year, it's up to 5,000. And can you imagine if we had the clean water, how much more we could all enjoy the lake before it turns into a marsh if we left it. We are teaming up with Lake Eau Claire to get some things done. And I want you to consider investing in all of us in the protection of our lakes so that your grandchildren can enjoy that. Investing in our natural resources is a lasting and enduring investment. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Hain. I live at 1603 Old English Road in Altoona, and tonight I am representing the Boys and Girls Club. I am serving now as the board chair, and I just wanted to thank you for your consideration for our needs that Roxy outlined earlier today. We so often talk about diversity and inclusion in our community. The need for the elevator at our center is for that need specifically, for inclusivity of all of our kids that come to the club. There is no access to our teen center for those of special needs. If a special needs child comes to our center, we need to move our teens to a different area.
Imagine how that special needs child feels when everyone else has to move for them so that they can't enjoy the space that's designed for them but have to go somewhere else. So the need for the elevator is very important to our facility for that teen center and for that inclusivity and for those children. And the cameras that Art Roxy mentored are for the safety of the children that come. We have hundreds of children that come in the summertime and several during the after school, and lots of them during the after school program as well. Cameras are so important for their safety and ensuring that. Our request to you is to ensure safety and accessibility in providing services to those of the greatest need. Thank you for your consideration.
A Beatles song, number 9, number 9. Thank you for your attention. I am Jennifer Eddy. I live at 2217 Walnut Ridge Drive, and I wear lots of hats. I just came from the Master Singers, and I hope that you support the arts. I also run a small nonprofit known as the Family Resource Center. Hope you support us. And I am a member of the Board of Health. And I guess my overall advice to all of you, I don't envy you, you have a tough job, is to really focus on prevention and what will bring this community the best outcome in the long run for your investment. So we know that children 0 to 5 are forming their brain, and how we treat them and the role models we set for them last lifelong. So by supporting the Family Resource Center, and I don't know how many of you know it, but we're instituting together with, I think, 23 other wonderful organizations supported by the Wisconsin Board of Prevention. We're supporting Triple P, where the people who bring you all those billboards, that is evidence-based parenting advice that transforms communities. So by supporting early intervention, you're really going to make a big difference. The last thing I will say is just our health department is amazing and is incredibly underfunded. There's a lot of prevention dollars that don't come to Wisconsin. We're one of the lowest states in terms of prevention for our health department. So any funds that you can give towards prevention, preventing substance abuse, so we don't have to struggle with all the people in treatment, we prevent it up front. Those funds are really good uses of this money. So thank you very much for your time.
So now I get to have a little bit of fun here. So right before we started, I think most of you know Carrie Kincaid, who used to be our council president. So now I'm going to embarrass you, Carrie. But Carrie wanted to speak on a separate topic, and I told her that there was this former council president that said, no, you can only speak once. And I think she told me that council president didn't know what they were talking about or something like that. Anyway, we do have some time left. So if there are people here who would like to speak a second time, I will allow you to do that. And as I indicated, Carrie did indicate she wanted to speak a second time on a different topic than she spoke on the first time. So Carrie, if you want to come up, and if there are others, by all means, if you want to just, I guess, one at a time, line up by Kathy, that would be fine as well.
Thank you, Mr. Winsens. Thank you again to members of the City Council and the County Board. We are grateful for this opportunity and grateful to allow me to speak on what is another issue that's of importance to me. Tonight, I speak as the president and on behalf of a nonprofit called Porch. Founded in 2019, Porch works to solve practical problems for people facing homelessness. My board member, Dr. Adler, is here with me tonight too. He's that guy waving right back there. COVID was a difficult time for people without a place to live. As we witnessed in the increased demand for overnight shelter last winter and into these summer months with the daytime shelter, no option for a daytime shelter. Local data shows as of June of 2021, there are 37 people with government-supported rental funds who are looking for a place to live. 40 or 50 people stay in shelter overnight. There are 149 people registered as being homeless on the coordinated entry list, which is a HUD-supported assessment tool that assesses unhoused people according to need. Porch has been working on an idea since January of this year to help alleviate some of that need. Our idea is a mission-driven supportive housing model for housing those with significant barriers to becoming and remaining housed, which can include one or more of the following. Very low income, sometimes less than 30% of AMI, average medium income for our area. Poor mental health, poor rental and credit history, and offenses of the law. We think our idea indeed may complement some others you have heard tonight for establishing public-private partnerships to house those with very high rental barriers. Though our idea is not yet mature, we have a vision we have an idea for a mission-driven housing called Porch House, which will offer practical, safe, and a stable place to live for people who face significant barriers to becoming or staying housed. Practical because it's accessible to transportation, food markets, maybe a job. Practical because it offers clean and sturdy one-bedroom apartments. Safe because it's located in a neighborhood in a well-maintained and secure building with constant positive contact with law enforcement, neighbors, and the community. And stable because we would be a willing landlord with a patient and authoritative calm and offer robust supportive services with on-site coordination. Our work has been painfully slow in this time of high need for supportive housing. And yet we do have a few more details which I don't have time or is not the proper venue to share with you. We only ask that you consider, along with other organizations tonight, assigning some of the ARPA money to meet housing needs in our community. We do feel this fund is justified as it fits under the local fiscal recovery funds category, serving the hardest hit, housing and neighborhoods. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak about our ideas. We are a city that works. We've heard so many amazing ideas tonight. I'm really proud to be a citizen of this place with all these people. And all you people, of course. We just ask that you consider consider allowing us to apply whatever your application process turns out to be. I know you have a lot of work ahead of you to figure that out, but we hope that we get a chance to apply with our mission-driven supportive housing model called Porch House. Thank you so much for entertaining my comments again.
Thank you to all of you for allowing the opportunity for all of us to speak tonight and to hear us out. I apologize, I was not planning to speak tonight, so I'm not prepared, but I just did feel it would be important to make just a couple of notes. My name is Jenny Chappett. I live at 3860 Redwood Drive in Eau Claire County. For those of you who don't know me, I have years of experience here in Eau Claire helping our unstably housed individuals and households, whether that means people experiencing homelessness or people who are on the verge of becoming homeless. Although I have not had that experience myself, I have been very empathetic in helping many of our Eau Claire community members through that themselves. And I pride myself in the ability to meet them where they're at and understand where they're coming from and all of their different stories. You know, and I could go on for hours and hours, and unfortunately I have 3 minutes and I'm not prepared. So we're just gonna wing it. You know, I guess my plea to you in considering funding for these millions of dollars that our community has this opportunity to use is to please consider something new that our area has not done before when it comes to housing and helping individuals who are either homeless or on the risk of becoming homeless, or even low income people who are not close to homelessness until they are in an accident or on the verge of losing their next paycheck, which is about 50% of our Eau Claire community members. You know, we've heard in recent community discussions, and we know our downtown businesses are not very happy with our individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So, you know, this is a newer topic for all of us, and I urge us to, you know, I guess what it comes down to is what we've been doing is not working. Our homeless numbers are rising. Our community members are not stable. And this is an opportunity to use some funds in a way that will actually make a difference for people. And as I said, I could speak for hours about some of those ideas, but for the few 30 seconds I have left, just please take into consideration our people living off of $700 a month, are people with physical disabilities, mental illness, addictions, but then also just our households who we do believe are stable, but are not necessarily really stable. So thank you.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and this evening and taking time out of your evening and time away from your friends and family to share with us your stories and share with us how we might be able to use these funds to better our community and our communities. Just want to thank you all for that. I know that it can be scary and intimidating to stand up here in front of a microphone and speak in public. So for showing up, I think let's just all thank them all for coming out this evening. So that will wrap up our listening session for this evening. I know that I'll be sticking around for at least until 8 o'clock, and others may as well. So, you know, feel free to stay and mingle. And again, just want to thank you all for coming out. Please, you know, stay tuned. There will be other opportunities for involvement, both on the county side with their funding decisions, as well as on the city side. As I mentioned earlier, please do get on the city's website, eauclaire.wi.gov/ARPA, and fill out the budget exercise. Let us know in that way how you would allocate $100 and how you would divide that up between the different activities, because all of that information will be very important to us as we move through this process and make these important decisions. Lastly, I just want to thank a few people. I think most of you are aware this event was originally scheduled to be occurring inside of the Pablo, and really on about 2 days' notice, decision was made to move it outside. And so a number of people were scrambling to make this happen. I just want to recognize Tess Morgan standing under the light over there. our little beacon of light, Kathy Marole, and also the Pablo staff. As I said, the team just worked together to figure out and make it work. And first time we went with Pablo staff was yesterday at about, I don't know, I think it was about 3 o'clock, and started talking about how we were going to make this work outside. And actually, very frankly, I think it's worked out very, very well. And it's a beautiful evening, and it's great to be in a place where you can see all sorts of people enjoying themselves, doing different activities. And I had to chuckle earlier because there was a young woman with her dog, and the dog was biting at the fountains that are going off over here. And I know my dog likes to bite at people's sprinklers when we go for walks. So anyway, by all means, stick around. Be happy to chat, and otherwise, stay tuned.